Thank you very much, Janie, and it's my great pleasure to be here. I'd like to say it's a bit daunting having so many wonderful speakers talking about their craft, and I'm a politician, and I'm the person responsible for getting the legislation through Tasmania. I have one staff member, and that was it. And so I'm going to give you my story in 15 minutes. I will jump around pretty much fairly quickly, but I'm comfortable with that because Michael Gaffney actually left County Mayo in 1857 from Galway, and I wasn't first class, so there's a bit of heritage there. I must admit, Janie, congratulations, wonderful. You've done such a good job with organising this. I would think... Although I don't understand with your exceptional skills why you couldn't have got a box, because I sat at the back yesterday and I could see the top of your head and your fingernails. So it would have helped if you were a bit taller. However, I'm going to get onto it, and if you're bored with my presentation, because I am a politician, I've put some Tasmanian wildlife in the bottom right-hand corner on every slide, so just focus on that. Also, Professor Dwyer, my population figure for Ireland is out of date. I did this slide in March. So my assumption then is you either breed very quickly in Ireland or your gestation period is shorter. We'll discuss that later. I have to say though, everywhere in the world, regardless of the size of the jurisdiction, it is a very sensitive topic. So whilst my state is only 570,000 people, and it's just a little bit smaller in size than Ireland geographically, they still had passionate people for and against the journey. So I'm not assuming that just because your country or your state is a different size, that it's any less difficult to get it through. I must admit though, in Tasmania, we had a very respectful debate, and it was really good. The most angst we had from groups were probably from the mainland, anti-groups from the mainland coming to Tasmania, trying to impress on Tasmanians how end-of-life choices or voluntary assisted dying are bad laws. And that was the thing that I found most disconcerting. I'm not going to try and talk through every slide. You can have a look, and some of previous speakers have touched on that, so I thank you for that. The red one is where I am now. I'm in the Legislative Council, and there are 15 of us. During the debate, there were only 25 in the lower house, the House of Assembly. That's increased to 35 in this last election this year, so that'll change a little bit. For some politicians who worry about whether they should get involved with this debate, in 2009 when I was elected there were 4 candidates. I have 6-year terms. In 2015 there were 2 candidates. In 2021, at the height of the voluntary assisted dying legislation, I was the only person, I was the only candidate. None of the government or opposite thought that they possibly had a chance of defeating me at the polling booth. I also have to say the Tasmanian journey. There were 3 bills. In 2009 it was Dying with Dignity, and immediately it was jumped upon by those opposed. First of all, the AMA, the Australian Medical Association, said that, and palliative care and the local church groups come out and said, we want people to die with dignity too. How dare you introduce a bill into Parliament, dying with dignity? Are you saying that we don't want that? That was my first year in Parliament. That did not even pass into the committee stage, and the committee stage is where you debate each clause. We have the same Westminster system. In 2013, the then Premier Lara Giddings, a lovely lady, she was in power at the time. The Greens had 5 seats, so it was actually a hung Parliament, 10 Labor, 5 Greens, 10 Liberal. It was defeated 13-11, and Lara said to me later on, that was the first time she cried in her office, was when she went back there because she couldn't even get the bill to the table to be debated. In 2016, it was defeated 16-8. The Speaker doesn't vote, so it was 24 members voted there. And so it wasn't getting any traction, or not enough. So the Tasmanian journey. In February 2019, I was asked by Dying with Dignity Tasmania if they reintroduced the bill, if it was passed in the lower house, would you carry the bill in the upper house? And I said, sure. I've always been a believer in a person should have the right to choose. But when I did that, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know enough about this. I need to get some expert help, and I need to get it out of my country so that I can get all this information. And so I did a 2-week trip, and as you can see, many of the names on the board were people that I went to visit in that 2 weeks journey, and it was just so wonderful for me to have an international group, so that when I came back, if I had an issue with the bill, and there was myself and my EA, my assistant, I could get online, send an email. What did you guys do about this? How do you look at this? You know, this is a concern for me. That was it. When I came back, though, there'd been a change in Parliament. One of the 8 people who were in favour of voluntary assisted dying resigned, and his replacement was a person who was against voluntary assisted dying. So it would have been 17-7. So I said to Tasmanian Dying with Dignity, why don't you let me introduce the bill in the upper house? Because I think there's a better chance, or at least a chance, it won't survive in the lower house. And they were very happy with that. Although that creates some issues as well, because the difference is, if I'm carrying somebody else's bill, I'm comfortable with that, and I've done that before, and I'm sort of voicing their opinion. However, if I'm tabling a bill, which is a private member's bill, it better reflect what I believe. And so therefore, Dying with Dignity Tasmania thought I'd take the 2016 bill and just carry that into 2019 and introduce it. No, that wasn't going to happen. And so this is where a little bit of fraction there. But what happened is that I went to see the Premier. I said, Premier, I'm going to introduce this bill. I need access to OPC, which is the Office of Parliamentary Counsel. I'm not a lawyer, I was a teacher. But the Office of Parliamentary Counsel was really good. Robin was a wonderful lady. She actually started her drafting career in 1992 in the Northern Territory with Marshal Perron when they introduced the legislation there. So it was like a full circle for her to come around back to this space. And she was wonderful. She had a wicked sense of humour. On my birthday, she sent me a syringe with voluntary assisted dying in a tube on it. I was much nicer. On her birthday, I sent her a dozen flowers. Death lilies. So it was all good. So in the 2020, I introduced a bill to Tasmania, 102 pages. I did 35 forums to 29 local government areas in the month. That's 6. Oh, what happened is in the other 3 bills, the Parliament just arrived with the bill on the table, and there was no community involvement, no community discussion or know-how, and then you'd read the next day in the paper that Parliament had not voted for it or it hadn't got to committee stage. I knew from my association with people in Tasmania, we needed to get the Tasmanian people's voice behind this bill so it would carry and pass. So, introduced the bill, 35 forums to 60 to 90 minutes each forum. Individual right to choose. We had a petition of 13,000, and that's a pretty good number for our state. Tasmanian perspectives. I'm speaking really quickly, but I've got a lot to get through, so I hope you understand me, because I haven't understood a lot of the Irish for the last week. And so a young lady came up and said, why won't politicians pass this bill? And I said, well, they're not convinced. And she said to me, well, they should have saw what happened with my mum. And I said, well, you write me that story, and I'll make sure every politician will get that. I'll get that, your story. I did this at a number of the forums, and I thought I'd probably end up with 30 or 40. 109 stories came back to me. So I bound those up, put them, they were only ever going to be on my website for 2 weeks, and I gave a hard copy to each of the 40 politicians because they were quite sad, as you would, and tragic in lots of circumstances. And then suddenly I started to feel the tide turn a little bit. I also remember I used to do, that's right, a New Norfolk couple came to see me after one of the forums, and they said, Michael, how long will this bill take to get through? And I said, look, realistically, 18 months, 2 years. And I looked at the wife and she looked at the husband and she said, we don't have that long. I said, I understand that. And she said, we have 4 kids. And I said, are you Irish? No. And she said, but I want to tell my story because I can help the next lot of generation. If my children are in this space in 30 years' time, I want them to have the choice. So that was the sort of thing, and this sort of flow kept coming through the papers and whatever. One it was interesting. In the original bill, I sort of carried on from made. It was a doctor at each of the events, at each of the substance taking. And I had a lady at a Devonport forum say to me, I don't want a doctor within 50 kilometres of me. I don't trust them. I just don't want her there. And I had to think very carefully about that. I hadn't sort of gone down that track. And I thought, I think she's got a point. So in my bill, what I was able to do was a draft bill. I was able then to change that to have in my bill private self-administration. Okay, so my document was a work of trying to get feedback from the community about how it could be better, how it could be strengthened. Governments of the day put their bills on the table and they said, we're not going to change it. We're not going to change our mind with that because we know all, and which is really a silly way of operating as part of government. What you should be doing is trying to strengthen every bill that comes across the table. And so, with that in mind, the day I introduced the bill to Parliament was really quite interesting in the fact that the Premier put down a 4-page letter sent to every politician with 33 points why they wouldn't support the bill on the day I introduced it. And so I rang the Deputy Premier at the time. His name is now the Premier, Jeremy. He was now the Premier, who was a friend of mine. I called him and I said, are you guys trying to scuttle this bill? And he said, Michael. And he says, settle down. I said, okay. We don't, but you've got to understand, in Cabinet, there are 9 of us in Cabinet, 6 of the ministers are anti-voluntary assisted dying and have voted against it every other time. There are 3 of us that voted against us last time, but we are changing our mind. Now, I went out to those ministers for health and justice and all these different areas and saying, why do you like or what don't you like about this bill? And they came back with 33 points. And he said to me, but there's none of that you can't make an amendment for. For an example, in my bill, the draft bill, I had from the implementation, from the bill's royal assent, it would take 12 months for it to be implemented. The health department came back and said, we can't do that. It'll need at least 2 years. My amendment went back with 18 months. So when we got to the table, I had all these amendments to cater for all those 33 points. I did say to Jeremy, I would have probably preferred those 33 points before I tabled the bill. He said, no, Michael, because in our life, we had to be seen to be doing the right thing by our party, and that was by our ministers and whatever. I thought that was quite interesting. I said in 2016, the Premier, the Deputy Premier, the Health Minister all voted against the bill. Once the bill was tabled, 240,000, we had no money, and so I paid for the 240,000 pamphlets, and we got those delivered across the state by volunteers. Our whole campaign came in under €28,000. That was our campaign that got this bill passed. An interesting one there, and I've got a note here I've got to say. On the day it was tabled in the August, just quickly there, I tabled it on the Tuesday. On the Friday, Mel had her 3rd breast operation in 21 days, and we're in the hospital, and I said to her, I'm not going to table the bill next week. And she said, why not? I said, and you know how some men, you know how you get that stare and that golden sort of quiet moment. I said, because I think I should be here. And she said, Michael, don't be so silly. She said, this bill is so important. She said, there are people that depend on you to get this bill passed. So, put it in. My colleagues around the table in the upper house, there's 15 of us, they all looked at me like stunned mullets. They didn't realise that they were going, have I got, not a lot. They looked at me as though this is not going to get through because we were scared. So for 2 weeks I had briefings every Tuesday for 2 weeks. We had like 30 briefings, every group, and eventually got scared. I'll go through quickly. How much longer I've got, June? Oh, 1 minute. Okay. End of life, it was passed unanimously, 15-0. Only Parliament in the world, I think, that has passed 15-0. From 16.8 down, it went to 19.6. The Universal Review, oh gosh, I didn't get through hardly any of it. Primary medical practitioner, consulting medical practitioner, administrating health practitioners actually could be a registered nurse as well, because I had a doctor say to me, I don't mind being the PMP and the CMP, I don't want to do it. And I said, well, I can fix that in the bill. So I brought in nurses, and nurses do that better anyway, I think. Sorry, doctors. Injuries part, we only have to have one person sign the occasion. That's a Commissioner declaration. This one is interesting. In the Tasmanian legislation, an individual who's not expected to die within 6 months or 12 months timeframes may apply to the VAD Commission for an exemption from the timeframe criteria. And that's really interesting. We put that one in there, and it's up to the Commission. Okay, you've seen this before. In our bill, it does not die by suicide. We put that into the bill so that that would be protection. I'm going through this really quickly. This is important. Victoria, a lot of the other states are only looking at the operation of the bill. In our bill, it says not only can we look at the operation of the Act, but the scope of the Act and the potential scope of the Act. And our review is in 2025, and that's important. It allows us to have a good debate about some of the things that we've discussed here. This is how it works. VAD Commission, a navigation service, a pharmacy service, and a Tasmanian Health Service. There's a fifth group out there. Retired doctors are powerful. Retired doctors are really powerful within their community, and they are a real source that they may have been retired, but their community listen to the retired doctors, get them on board. Okay, this is the Tasmanian snapshot. About 110 deaths in 20 months, which is about what we think, about 1 to 2%. I'm just going through this. 2 minutes? Oh, 2 minutes. Oh, good. All right. No. Okay. All right. I was going to go with this, and I'll let you read that. Tuesday, before Mel and I flew over on Friday, I had a phone call from a friend of mine who was in local government. He was a couple of years younger than me. He was 62. He said, "Mike, I want to talk to you about your legislation, voluntary assisted dying." And usually when people say that, it's about a friend or a relative. And I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. Who is it?" And he said, "It's me." And I went, "Oh," it was one of those chilling moments. I said, "Oh, Chris, I'm sorry, so sad to hear. What's the situation?" He said, "No, I'm taking the substance on Sunday, but I want you to know that without your work, I wouldn't have had the choice that I have to be able to do that. And I'm at peace." He said, "It's the first time for a long time he had stage 4 or something. I didn't hear a lot of that. And he just wanted me to know that he was so grateful that I had been able to carry the bill through to its conclusion." So you didn't see many of the birds and stuff down the end. This is the whole... the other thing is, when we got it through, all of our design posters and whatever, we were advertising at the start, we went back and we said, "Thank you, Tasmanian, together we made it happen." So it was telling them, I've spoken at year 11, 12s, 25 classes of those who actually have VAD as one of their topics for their exams this year. That's how much we've been able to get into that. Last one, and if you ever get to Tasmania, please come and visit my wife and I in our little home. So I'm sorry I had to rush it. Thank you.